Greetings, colleagues. In assessment, we never want to make the work that you are doing for assessment more difficult. We are stepping back right at this moment, though, and thinking about some things because we are about to enter our next 3-year cycle of assessment. And if we can't make changes that actually make your life easier and the lives of your colleagues in your department easier, then we do want to make those changes. And so in consultation with our department assessment coordinators, here's what we are planning to do. In the past, you had an assessment form that was used for course assessment that was 4 pages long, and you went into different sections based on where you were in the process. And that seemed a little complicated for some folks, and it was harder to kind of get back into that form to get back to finish the assessment. Another thing that has happened is information from that form was also going into a public summary table in your department's academic assessment plan, which is the public summary of all of the work that you are doing. And the form itself was not very well aligned to the public table, and this either created more work for you or more work for your department assessment coordinator. Finally, we are shifting to a new, simpler model of assessment that's focusing on the plan, do, study, act model and thinking about how that method of thinking about continuous improvement is supported in our assessment work. So we've been going through a process the last few months with our department assessment coordinators to propose a shifting of the form that's going to make everybody's life easier. And now I'm going to show you that form. So you'll notice it looks very much like the old forms, and there's a lot of items that are one-to-one from the old form to the new form, but this form is only 1 page long. So let's walk through it. Just like the old form, you're going to identify who you are when you submit it and what the academic year is. Now, the biggest change here is that this form will auto-populate into the course table that I will show you later. And so you want to be thinking about just giving us a very brief snapshot of the critical information related to your assessment that then can be viewed by a more public audience. So we're looking for maybe 2 to 4 sentences in response to each of these items, which should also hopefully take some of that work away from you. But later in the form, if you do want to link us to more information or write more information, you can, but you're not required to do so. So again, just like the last form, you will give us the course prefix and number, the course name. If you are doing a common course assessment, which we hope you are doing, if possible, if you are not the only person teaching a particular course, you'll identify how many full-time faculty were part of this assessment, part-time faculty, and dual enrollment faculty if appropriate. You can identify which course modalities are involved in this assessment. So for example, is this only courses taught online, or are they a combination of face-to-face, hybrid, and so on? Then we're going into this new Plan, Do, Study, Act. If you're not familiar with this, there's a little video in here you can watch to learn more about it. And this next section simply asks, when did you do these 4 stages? Most likely you'll have completed at least 3 of these stages at the point that you're submitting this form. So we'll ask you, which semester did you plan? When did you do? When did you study? And when did you act? And you'll notice right below each of those, it'll describe what we're looking for in that segment. Now, you may not have actually acted at this point, so this is why this one says, when did you or when will you act? From there, we go into, again, same items that we saw in the previous form. What is your course learning outcome? If you have a certificate or an associate's, or maybe you're upcoming with a bachelor's degree and you have a program learning outcome that this is related to, you'll pop that right in there. You'll identify any institutional learning outcomes that this assessment relates to. And here we've broken them down by rubric. So for example, communication and thinking are listed multiple times because of the different types of rubrics associated in those areas. You'll then also identify whether you are using our Canvas ILOs as part of your assessment. We do certainly encourage this because it allows you to sort of double dip and makes it easier for us to get course data and institutional data all at the same time. From there, we're going into a couple different items. So here we've got training and communication. So you'll just briefly explain any sort of training that your faculty have had in assessment or maybe had for this particular assessment. Also, if you are having multiple faculty engage in the assessment, just again, a brief description of how did you communicate? Was it by email? Was it through meetings? Did you have shared Google Docs? What allowed you to work collaboratively on this assessment? In the next part, the student learning, this is part of the do phase, you'll talk about, well, how did faculty teach this information or provide instruction on this information? In the past, in the old form, there was a series of checkboxes. Here, you're just going to write it out in a couple sentences. We taught the information in lab, or there were assignments that targeted it, or there were lecture videos, however this information was being conveyed to students. The instrument and scoring, again, is pretty similar to what we saw in the last form. How did you design the instrument that gathered the data? How was it scored? What were you expecting in terms of student proficiency? And then again, just like the last form, what is the student proficiency percentage you're aiming at? How many students or what percentage of students do you want to see succeed to feel that this is a success? And then you'll describe, again, very briefly, your initial assessment results. What did you find when you analyzed the data? Now, if you are not ready for the ACT phase, you will stop right here, scroll to the bottom, hit submit, and then you'll get this link again. You'll talk to your coordinator, get this link again to finish this report at a later point. If you have done all of the steps before you're submitting this report, you'll just keep going. So here, this just says, well, what did you do as your intervention or change during your ACT step here? The goal always is student learning improvement, although we may not always be ready for student learning improvement if we need to update some things about our assessment process or our instruction or other things. So check as many of these boxes as appropriate. Again, this is the same from the old form. You will then describe what your intervention or change was. What did you change? How did you change it? Why did you change it? Why was this important to do? And then you'll describe your reassessment results. After you reassessed, what did you find? And you can describe whether this change that you made will be adopted, adapted, or abandoned based on whether it worked well in this process or not. At that point, no other information is going to go into the public report, but there are a few other questions we would like you to consider answering. One is, this is an accomplishment. We should be celebrating all of you for going through the planning through action steps of this process. So we would like you to share with us, who do you think should know this information beyond those who were involved? And can we share that for you, or are there ways that you can share it with those individuals? We've given you a whole long list of who you might consider connecting with about this information. You're also always welcome to email us here at assessment@gccaz.edu and be in our Assess for Success audio series. If you have ideas for next steps, what you're going to do next cycle, throw them in here. If you don't know, it's okay to say, hey, I don't know yet. We'll figure that out in a couple semesters when we get there. If you are part of an assessment that involved multiple courses and multiple prefixes, you might not have been able to share enough information about what the interventions were like earlier. So here you might just give us a little representative sample of the types of things that different faculty were doing in this space. And lastly, because we know that you have lots of information here, and we are trying to simplify what you share with us and the extra work you need to do, if you have internal documents shared in your Google Drive, you can just give us those links and you can say, hey, check this out, so that we have a record of that information. Obviously, you'll hold on to it as well, but if you want to share it with us, you can just pop that Google Drive link right in there. Or if there's some other information you really want us to share, you add it in this information section right here. At that point, you hit submit and you are done. And not only are you done, but here's the most super exciting thing of this new process. When you hit that submit button and say you're done, what will happen is this course table, which hopefully might look a little familiar to you because of if you've ever looked at your department's assessment plan, this is the course summary table, the public table. All of the information from that form will populate directly into this table, and you won't have to create this table, and your department assessment coordinator will not have to create this table. So all that information that you'll have typed in will just be filled in all these little response sections here and there. The only thing we might have to go back and do a little bit of work on is getting some X's in this modality section. Other than that, all of that form information puts right in here, and we can share the incredible work that you all are doing with our public audience as a way to demonstrate the excellent work that's happening in student learning outcome assessment. So we hope that you are as excited about the simplified process as we are, and we look forward to getting these forms out and ready for you and using them throughout, without a doubt, the next 3 years of this process, if not beyond. Thank you for participating in student learning outcome assessment, and we're excited to have you helping us improve our experience with students.